Global multidão, realizing just transitions. Global multidão, realizing just transitions. Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP30 in Billy.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome to the side event at the German
Welcome
Pavilion.
to the side event at the German Pavilion.
It's a pleasure to see all of you here.
It's a pleasure to see all of you here,
but also
in
joining
person,
us online.
but also joining us
We're
online.
in this very important
We're interested in this very important discussion that we're having today on just transition.
Before we get started, just
a brief info.
You should see
or hear on my right hand side, the various channels that we have for interpretation. We want to make sure that we can include as many people as possible into our debates.
So let me get started with a brief
introduction.
Under the
This
Brazilian
COP,
presidency
has made it very, very clear that just transition needs to be implemented in concrete terms.
From principles
It's time to move from principles
that's exactly
to
what
action.
we're here for
And
today.
that's exactly what we're here for today. To talk about where we stand,
has already been
what
made,
progress has
and
already
what
been
it
made,
takes to turn commitments
and what it
into
takes to turn commitments into concrete results, especially for
We're honored
workers.
to have a very diverse
We're honored
audience
to have
with
a
us
very
today.
diverse
I can
audience
see
with us
unionists,
today.
I can see
trade
various
unionists,
experts,
I can see various
diplomats,
experts, researchers,
activists, civil
diplomats,
society,
activists,
all
civil
committed to
society,
advancing
all committed
climate
to
action.
advancing
A very
climate
special
action.
welcome goes to
A very
State
special
Secretary
welcome
Jochen Flasbarth
Secretary
from the
Jochen
German
Flasbarth
Federal Ministry
from
for the
the
Environment,
German Federal
Climate
Ministry
Action,
for the
Nature
Environment, Climate
Conservation and
Action,
Nuclear
Nature
Safety,
Conservation and Nuclear Safety,
to
whose long-standing commitment to international climate cooperation, just transition, continues to inspire many. Thanks for joining us.
My name is Kathrin Schäfers. I'm the
My name is
Counselor
Kathrin Schäfers. I'm the Counselor for Labor and Social Affairs at the German Embassy in Brasília. And on behalf of the Embassy, as well as on behalf of the German Trade Union Confederation, I'm delighted to open this session and to guide you through the program over the next hour. To start our panel, we're very pleased to have a message from Yasmin Fahimi, the President of the German Trade Union Confederation. So join me and let's listen to her remarks together.
Dear comrades, dear guests, a warm welcome from Germany. Although I cannot be with you in person today, I send you warm greetings from afar. I'm very pleased that we, as the German Trade Union Confederation, together with the German Embassy and the International Trade Union Confederation, are once again hosting a side event at the German Pavilion. We meet a time of rising geopolitical tensions, growing uncertainty, and increasing pressure on multilateralism. Concerns about economic and social progress are mounting along with fundamental questions about living standards, job security, and future prospects in many regions. Across working places, we see growing concern about the ongoing transition and the transition ahead. Many workers feel threatened in their jobs, their skills, and their daily lives. For us, one thing is clear. We must avoid a social and ecological backlash. That is why we need to discuss how sustainable modernization can go hand in hand with secure and inclusive prospects for working people. Meeting these challenges requires a clear and reliable policy framework for companies, for regions, and above all, for workers. We need answers on how to reduce fossil fuel dependency, strengthen participation and ensure fair distribution within societies and between the global North and South. Without a strong focus on labor, this transition will not succeed. We must create trustworthy pathways for workers grounded in human rights, labor rights, and robust social protection. A genuine, just transition can improve working and living conditions worldwide. It builds acceptance and enables the need modernization toward climate neutrality. So far, only small steps have been taken in the COP process in this regard. Therefore, we welcome the Brazilian COP presidency emphasis on just transition. We strongly support anchoring the role of work in negotiations and in nationally determined contributions. This climate conference is more than a negotiation place. It is a symbol of multilateral cooperation. We stand behind it and advocate for its continued strength on a platform for global solidarity and shared solutions. These are the issues we want to discuss with you today, and I wish all of us a fruitful exchange and many valuable insights. Glück auf!
Thank you, Yasmin, at least virtually. I would now like to welcome State Secretary Mr. Jochen Flasbarth onto the stage. It's great that you found the time to be with us here today. We all know that you're busy, kept up in the negotiations, but we're very eager to hear now how what your initial assessments are of the first days and to learn more about the German governmental perspective on just transition. The stage is yours.
Thanks a lot. Hello, everybody. I was asked not to push too hard here on the podium. Thanks a lot for having me again. And as far as I can remember, at least over the last 6-7 years, I've always been at the DGB event at the COPs. Maybe not coming as a surprise as a social democrat that we are advocating for the full involvement of trade unions into the whole process. Not as something nice to have, but integrated as an integrated voice. Frederik, very, very happy that you organize this with your teams again, and also to our partners from the international trade unions. So, where are we now? We started the discussion about a serious discussion about just transition, basically at the Polish COP in Katowice, not as a surprise. Very relevant for the transformation in Poland, Germany's eastern neighbor, facing basically the challenges we had in Germany and we still have with the transformation of our energy system. So we had a lot of debates since then, but now we are entering a stage where we have to get a different level, and maybe I can add a different seriousness into the discussions, and that is what is on the agenda with the Just Transition Work Program. So now it needs to be concrete, and I will share some few thoughts about this with you. I was privileged to facilitate ministerial discussions at the pre-COP in Brasília a couple of weeks ago. Very insightful where parties are, what they want, but also some positions where we still have to discuss. I think most relevant is, if we want to talk about a just transition, we need to know where to transit. If the target is foggy, you will not create policies to get there, and then you can't create a just and fair way to get it. And therefore, the 1.5 anchor is absolutely essential. Later on the day, we will have more discussions and debates about the 1.5 and also how to reflect as a COP seriously on the gap between the current NDCs just provided by parties to what is needed to achieve the 1.5. But again, without getting this very clear, you will not be able to make national and international precise policy designs, and then the just transition will just be a foggy word. What do I mean with that? Once we have the target, then you get to the national, on the national level, to reach out and design how to get to the targets in your respective country. And let me just pick on a current debate in Europe. And that is about the future of cars. And very essential for Germany, believe me, one of our core industries, very relevant, Frederik, to the trade unions in our country. And what we see here is we have in the European Union a target which is net zero for new vehicles in 2035. And this gives orientation. And of course, it's a painful way for some parts of the industry, basically not the car industry in itself at the beginning, but for example, the gear industry. Of course, they are affected. But once you have set a target, everybody gets the orientation. And what we see now in Europe, just to share it with our friends also from outside Europe, is once you start a discussion, that markets get disturbed, consumers get disoriented, and it was very impressive for me when we spoke with heads of the trade unions in the car companies in Germany, our minister Carsten Schneider. All of them were very clear, and they said, don't touch on the existing regulation. At the end, we will lose the combustion engine market, and we will not be competitive on the new incoming markets. And that is what I mean. We have to be clear in the targets. Then we, of course, have to design the policies in a way that people can transition in a fair and equitable way. That is what we are discussing here. I think we have developed quite a number of policies. If you have very fast transformations, as we see it in some of the sectors, then of course you need governmental public support to accompany the transitioning away, to provide funding for reskilling, and maybe in the last on the last stage, if needed, also social, financial measures to ensure that people are not paying the price what we decide on the governmental and social level. This is the first one was the where to 1.5. The second one is the how, and I think that it should be, in my view, the core of the Just Transition work program, to look at best practices in other countries, to look at don't do's, what should you avoid in this regard, and what are the best measures, the best experiences we have in countries with the Just Transition. Of course, social partners are absolutely essential because they are the spokespeople for the workers, but at the same time, they are the ones who have for the overall societal debate. As you all know, we will have later on today a meeting on information integrity. As you all know, populists are popping up everywhere in the world, and they are jumping exactly on those issues. And if we give them space to be vocal that this transformation is not in the interest of people, we will lose the democratic battle about this. So therefore the inclusion of social partners, it's not only for them, their focused mandate to be advocates for the workers, but also to be a strong participant in the societal discussion. Let me close by sharing one observation I made at my facilitating as a pre-COP. There were, as you know, were some inputs that the whole world is not equitable, that the whole world is injustice, and that we have to solve this with a work program. My answer was, sorry for that. This will not be possible in a work program under the climate convention and the Paris Agreement. Therefore, we have to get away from this overall statements that this world is unjust, and break it down. What does it mean for the process we have? I couldn't agree more that the world is terribly unjust, and I could run mad that over the last crisis of Corona and then the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, the 10 richest people, the 10 richest men, to be concrete, precise, doubled their wealth, whereas at the same time the poorest part of the world got even poorer. We have to be outspoken on that. This is something for an overall debate we have to have in our societies, also in New York when we are discussing about the SDG implementation, also when it comes on the issue of taxation of the super rich. All this has to be discussed, but if anybody expects that we will solve it as a work program, this is, sorry to say, a bit too much. So sorry, I have to jump out. As you might have heard, I was asked to be helpful for the presidency to work on adaptation. Pleasure to do so, and therefore I have to jump to the next meeting. I wish the discussion here so all best results. Thanks.
Yeah, again, thank you for taking the time and for the insights, and good luck for what's coming up now. So I think we will build on that. On what the State Secretary just said, and that's why I would like to now start with our panel and invite our panelists. So I would like to start with you, Maira. Maira is a Special Advisory Services head Special Advisory Services for the International Affairs at the Labor Ministry in Brazil. Good to have you. Yeah. For now, you can choose. Also, Ms. Ingrid Hoven, who is the Manager Director at GIZ, which is the implementing agency for German Development Cooperation. Good to have you here. I would also like to welcome Antonio Lisboa, who is the Secretary for International Relations at CUT Brazil. And last but not least, Frederik Moch, who is the Director of Structural Industry and Service Policy Department at the DGB. I hope everyone has a glass of water. That might be important for the discussions. So good to have you all here. We try to bring together different perspectives onto this panel. That was the idea. We have views from government, we have development cooperation, and of course, we have the perspective from trade unions with us today. And now, let's just the idea is to just take a closer look at where do we stand on just transition. I would like to start with you, Antonio. Antonio is gonna answer in Portuguese, so for everyone who doesn't speak Portuguese, please put on your headphones. You have headphones here, you have headphones there. Okay. Okay, Antonio, good to have you here. Yeah, take your time. you're representing the largest Brazilian trade union umbrella organization, bringing together people, workers from various industries. From your perspective, and with regard to the title of our panel discussion, Are We on Track? Where do we stand on the issue of just transition from your perspective and the perspective of the Brazilian workers?
First of all, I would like to know if you're hearing me in English and Portuguese. Yes?
Ok.
Great.
Podemos falar? Bom
Good day
dia.
to all. Thank you so much for
Obrigado
the
pelo
invitation.
convite. É sempre bom
It's always
discutir
a
esses
pleasure
temas e,
to
aliás,
discuss
nós
these
temos feito
themes,
isso
and we've been doing this
muito recente.
very often, frequently.
Creio que o simples
Recently.
fato de que nós
The fact that
cada
we've
vez
been
mais
discussing
estamos
this theme
discutindo
more
esse
and
tema
more
aqui em... Nada. Alô.
Hello, can you hear us now?
Alô.
Hello?
Alô.
Yes? Okay, great.
Works? Ok.
Well, as I was
Bom,
saying,
como eu dizia, obrigado pela
thank you very much for the
pela
opportunity.
oportunidade. Eu acho que nós temos
I think,
tido, em função da
given
COP
the
no
fact that the
Brasil,
COP is being hosted in Brazil,
espaços
this
muito
is a great
importantes
space
para
for
discutir esse tema da
discussing
transição
just
justa.
transition.
E eu sempre
And I
costumo
like to
dizer,
say, and
tenho
I've been
procurado
trying to
dizer,
say it often,
que
that
é
it's
bom a
good
gente
to
resgatar
know
de onde
where
vem essa
this
expressão,
expression comes
de
from.
onde vem esse tema, essa discussão.
And
E para
for
nós, do mundo do trabalho,
From the
é
trade
importante
unions,
registrar
it's
que
important
desde os
to
anos
say that since the
70,
70s,
ok?
it's important to
Importante
say
registrar
that
que
since
desde
the
os anos
70s,
70,
the theme
o tema
of
da transição é
transition
tratado
has been
pelo
dealt
movimento
with
sindical, pelos
by the trade
trabalhadores e
union and
trabalhadoras.
the
Isso
workers.
surgiu lá nos Estados
It
Unidos, se
started
não me falha a
in
memória, em
1973, I think, in the
1973,
US,
quando
when a
uma
plant
fábrica
that was polluting
poluente
had to
tinha
be
que ser
shut down,
fechada
and
e
the
que os
trade unions
sindicatos se posicionaram
positioned
dizendo, ok,
themselves saying, well,
é
we have to
preciso
change
mudar
that,
isso aqui,
but
mas
we
é
have to
preciso
have a
ter um
transition
período de
period.
transição.
And that
E
transition
esse período
period
de transição
cannot,
não pode,
as we
como a
usually
gente
say now,
costuma dizer agora,
cannot
não pode
leave
deixar.
anybody behind.
Ou seja,
So
é
there
preciso
must
que haja
be
justiça
fairness
no
in the
processo de
transition
transição
process so
para
that
que,
at that
naquele
moment,
momento, os
the
trabalhadores não
workers do not
sofram
suffer the
as consequências
consequences of change.
dessa mudança.
So
Portanto,
it's
é sempre bom, eu
always
costumo sempre
important,
falar
and I always
de
try to
onde vem a
say
transição justa,
where
exatamente para a
the
gente
just
colocar
transition comes from,
esse
to
tema
be able
dentro
to
do
place
eixo
this
do
within the
contexto que
context
nós,
that we,
trabalhadores e
the workers,
trabalhadoras,
want to have.
queremos ter.
Therefore,
Portanto, o tema da
just
transição
transition
justa é
is
um tema
absolutely
absolutamente
paramount
importante para
for
o movimento
the
sindical
trade unions
desde muito
for a
tempo.
long time. Having
Bom,
said that,
dito isso, eu acho que
I think there is
há
a
uma
second
segunda
important
questão
aspect,
importante,
which
é
is to
registrar
say
que,
that
de
in
fato, a
fact,
transição,
the transition,
especialmente a
especially the
transição
energy
energética,
transition,
vem e
has
ocorre.
been taking place.
Está aí.
It is happening.
Eu
I
tive a
had the
oportunidade,
chance a few
inclusive, de
years
alguns
ago
anos atrás,
to be, for
estar,
example,
por exemplo, no
in
Vale do
the
Rio Ru,
Ruhr Valley, I forget the
esqueci
city,
a cidade agora, onde se
where they
mudou ali a
changed the
produção
position,
do carvão
the
para,
production of coal,
inclusive para a indústria
for
farmacêutica,
the,
a indústria médica, etc.
pharma
Então, a
industry,
transição
etc.
está
So
acontecendo
transition is
no mundo
taking place
inteiro.
everywhere.
A
The question
pergunta é
is to know
saber se ela
whether
vem
it's happening
acontecendo da forma como
in a
nós
way we would
desejamos ou
like
como
to, in a
seria
desirable
desejado.
manner.
E
And
o
what
que
we've
nós
been
temos
seeing
verificado muitas
is
vezes
that
é que
oftentimes,
se
if
os
the
novos
new
modelos
production
de
models,
produção,
especially
especialmente a questão da
the
energia,
energy
têm
issues, have
produzido
been
novos
creating new
empregos,
jobs,
esses
they're
não
not the
são os
jobs
empregos
that
que
we
nós esperávamos que
created.
fossem.
So
Ou seja,
the
os
green
chamados empregos
jobs,
verdes,
be they
sejam
in the
eles no
field,
campo,
in
na
technology,
tecnologia,
in the cities,
nas
etc.,
cidades, nas indústrias, eles
they
têm trazido
have been,
muitas vezes mão de obra, mas ao
bringing
mesmo tempo
jobs,
têm
but also
deixado
leaving
para trás
behind many
muitos
of
dos
the
direitos
labor
trabalhistas
rights
que os
that the
trabalhadores e
workers
trabalhadoras
had.
tinham,
For
por exemplo,
example,
no processo.
The previous phase.
Nós
We have
temos
a
um
project in
projeto
the
no
northeast of
Nordeste
Brazil
para acompanhar
to follow the
a
energy
transição
transition,
energética
and
e a
I
gente,
had
eu
the
pelo menos
chance
tive a
to
oportunidade de
listen
ouvir de
to
trabalhadores
workers that
que
were in
estavam
the
na
production
produção
of
de
oil
óleo e
and gas
gás
and
foram para a
went to
produção da
wind
energia eólica
and solar,
e
and they said,
solar,
well,
que disseram, olha,
we want to
nós
get back
queremos
to oil
voltar
and
para a
gas,
produção de
because
óleo e gás,
there we
porque lá
had
nós
rights.
tínhamos direito, nós
We
tínhamos
had
carteira
a
assinada.
contract.
Carteira
For you to
assinada, para que vocês
understand,
entendam, é o
in Brazil we
documento que
call it a
garante
signed
trabalho formal
contract.
no Brasil.
We
Nós
had the
tínhamos
social
proteção
protections,
social,
etc.,
repouso remunerado, etc.,
and
negociação
collective
coletiva, e hoje
bargaining.
nós não
Today we
temos
don't have
mais.
that anymore.
Então,
So
esse
this
é um
is a
processo de
transition process,
transição
which is
importante,
important,
mas que,
but
diferente do que
differently
daquilo que
from
nós
what we
esperamos,
expected,
não
it
tem,
often
muitas vezes,
doesn't
deixado,
bring
trazido
the,
também os
labor
direitos
rights.
laborais.
So
Então, para
this
nós,
is
essa é
a
uma
very
questão
important issue.
extremamente importante.
What
O
else
que é,
is also
portanto, para nós
important for us
importante
is
em
not
não
leaving
deixar
anyone
ninguém para
behind.
trás?
The
A
issue
questão da
of
proteção
social
social,
protection,
do
the
direito
right
a férias, do
to
direito a um salário
vacation,
digno, de
and,
condições de trabalho que
decent
sejam
salary,
efetivamente
really
dignas,
decent
e isso
conditions, which
significa
means that these
que esses
workers must
trabalhadores
have a
têm que ter
right to
direito à
collective
negociação
bargaining, and
coletiva e
often they
muitas
do
vezes não
not.
têm.
In the
Existem, por
northeast of
exemplo, no
Brazil,
Nordeste
there
brasileiro,
are sectors of
setores da
production,
produção, especialmente da
especially
produção
wind
de energia
energy,
eólica,
but there
em
is
que
no
não há
collective
negociação
bargaining
coletiva,
because the
porque as
companies,
empresas nem sempre são
they're
geralmente resultado de
often
fundos de
simply,
fundos de
international
investimento
investment funds.
internacionais, e a gente tem
And what happens is that
dificuldades
that
na
generates
produção,
problems
na
for
negociação
collective
coletiva. Então, para nós,
So for us,
a transição
just
justa
transition
tem que
has to
ter, em
be,
primeiro
number
lugar,
one,
direito à
collective
negociação
bargaining,
coletiva, direito à
the right to
sindicalização e
unionize,
proteção
and social
social,
protections,
para que possa ter,
to
inclusive,
have
trabalho
decent
digno.
work.
Então, esse
That
é
is the
o trabalho
work
que
we
nós
have to
temos
do.
que realizar.
Obviously, when we
Obviamente que,
talk
como
about
falamos do Brasil,
since
como a
we
gente
have a
tem um
government
governo que
that
pratica o
practices
diálogo
social
social
dialogue
efetivo, a gente tem, ao mesmo
we
tempo,
have been
negociado,
negotiating, we
tido
have
contato,
been in a
feito
dialogue
diálogo
with the
com o
government.
governo.
I think Maira
Acho que a
will touch
Maira
on
vai
that.
tratar disso.
And that's
E
been
isso tem
advancing
avançado
for
para
us
que a
to
gente
be
possa
able to
também
advance
avançar nas
in the
condições de
working
trabalho
conditions for the
dos
workers.
trabalhadores. Portanto,
So
ao
at the
mesmo
same
tempo
time
que a
that we
gente
see the
enxerga
problems
problemas
and we
e
have
nós
to
temos
correct
que
them,
corrigi-los,
at the same
nós, ao
time in
mesmo
Brazil
tempo,
we
no
have the
Brasil,
possibility
temos a possibilidade
of
de ter
having
negociação
bargaining
com o poder
with the
executivo, a
executive
negociação e o diálogo social. Para concluir,
power. There is an
uma
issue
questão
which
que
is
para nós é
paramount
fundamental.
to
Nós
us. We
aprovamos
approved in
em
Brasília,
nós
we
fizemos
did
uma
a
pré-COP
trade union
sindical
pre-COP
em
before the
Brasília,
official
antes da
pre-COP,
pré-COP oficial,
and we
e
approved what the
aprovamos o que
social
os
movements,
movimentos
several
sociais, vários
social
movimentos
movements in the
sociais
world
do mundo
call,
estão chamando,
and we
nós
approved
aprovamos do que chamamos de mecanismos de ação
what
de
we
Belém
call
sobre transição justa.
the
Que é o
just
mecanismo de
mechanisms
ação
of
de Belém
Belém
sobre
for
transição
just
justa.
transitions,
Exatamente
which is a
a
creation of an
construção de
official
documento
document
oficial
which
que
is
seja
approved
aprovado
here
aqui,
and that may
que possa
establish
estabelecer
a
uma
strategy for
estratégia para a
applying just
aplicação da
transition
transição
not
justa,
only in
não só
Brazil
no
but
Brasil,
around the world,
mas no mundo
and
inteiro,
at the same
e ao
time
mesmo tempo possa
allowing for
ter
conditions
condições
for
de financiamento,
financing and
cooperação
cooperation
para
to
garantir a
ensure
transição
just
justa,
transition,
especialmente
especially
para os
for the
trabalhadores
workers
e trabalhadoras
that are more
mais
vulnerable.
vulneráveis.
Yesterday,
Ontem nós
we
tivemos
had
uma
important piece of
notícia
news,
importante,
which
que é
is
do
G77,
que teve, que
that decided to
resolveu apoiar
support with
juntamente
China,
com a China,
and
e
we
a gente
hope
espera
to
avançar na
advance
aprovação do
the
mecanismo de ação de
Belém
Belém,
action
para que a gente
mechanism
possa sair dessa conferência
so
junto à
that
próxima,
in the
nas
next
próximas,
COPs we
com um
have
documento
an
oficial que
official
possa
document that
estruturar
structures
a
our
nossa
discussion on
discussão
just
sobre transição
transition.
justa.
I
Desculpe,
think
acho
I
que eu
spoke
passei
too
do
much, but
tempo,
thank you
mas
very
muito
much.
obrigado.
Thank you so much for the insights. And you already mentioned the role of government, the role of social dialogue, which is why I would now turn over the mic to Maira, who's representing the Labor Ministry of Brazil. So how does the Labor Ministry, from your perspective, look at the topic at just transition, and especially with a focus on the COP? How do you try to incorporate the topic of workers and labor into the negotiations? Thank you.
Ok. Vou falar em português, tudo bem?
Se você
Sim, ok.
quiser.
Eu achei muito interessante que vocês escolheram a palavra incorporar para fazer essa pergunta, né? É importante entender que para o presidente Lula, para o governo
Lula administration, the social issue and obviously the work is right under the umbrella, which is the whole umbrella of social themes, is never separated. So there is no environment without social, there is no talking about economy without talking about the social aspect. So we're based on that principle that labor and workers are always in the spotlight of these policies. Obviously, There is a lot of work to be done. As Lisboa mentioned, we are in the midst of the energy transition. We're going through a digital transition, which is quite a challenge for the government in terms of work and employment. But I think this issue for the Brazilian government, especially for the Lula administration, this was never out of the spotlight. It doesn't have to be incorporated. This COP has people at its core. The debate has people at its core. Obviously, the workers and work are at the core. The Ministry of Labor is core. We have sent a lot of inputs. Like Lisboa said, we had a pre-COP where we talked about the workers, the employers. We created a document that was sent to the presidency. We participated in all the debates with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the presidency about fair transition or just transition. As we know, just transition is an ILO definition, and it has decent work at its core. We cannot consider a green company if there is no decent work. Oh, great, it's a wind energy company, but if the work is precarious, the conditions have any kind of disrespect of human beings, we're not going to give the seal of approval of a green company. And in the Ministry of Labor, we've been thinking about some topics which I think we will need to discuss in terms of just transition. There is the reskilling of workers. I'll talk about this, more of this later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that perspective. Thank you for that perspective. I think that's something that we already also Lula made very clear, and we felt in the last days that there can't be a COP without the people and without the workers. So I would like to now talk to you, Gabriela. Thanks for taking the time to join us. In preparation for this panel, I used ChatGPT to see what it says about you. And it says, Gabriela is the key figure promoting green jobs and skills development in the lead up to and at COP30. So we're great. It's great you're here. That's exactly what we want to hear from you and from your perspective as GIZ. What role does Just Transition play in your organization, and how do you perceive the negotiations so far here at COP and the debates that you follow when it comes to Just Transition? Thank you.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah, wonderful. It's on. Perfect. Yeah, thank you for having me. And I think this is also like the second or third time that I'm getting invited from the trade unions. Many thanks. And I always found this like very inspiring also to see new perspective from different countries that you invite on this very, very important topic. So for GIZ, of course, we have started to work on just transition in countries like South Africa, in Kenya, where actually bigger programs of energy transition were financed by the international community. And our approach is actually, when we are then in the region, we try really to pay a lot of focus on what is being considered fair, what is inclusive. And this is easier said than done. Because it's not only, for instance, if it's a region that has to get out of coal in an overall energy transition plan of the government, it's not only the miners that, of course, are well organized, etc., but it's actually, if this is concentrated in a region, actually the whole region is going to suffer economic losses. There are value chains that are going to be depleted. So this is a complex issue. What we have experienced on the ground when we try to somehow join those endeavors is that at the very beginning, and I think we are now doing a little bit better, thanks to the discussion on just transition, that the whole social issues came as a second thought. So we were very much concentrated at the very beginning to figure out how this energy transition works. What are the numbers? How much money is being needed? What are the substitutes? What is the type of new energy that we need? So, but nowadays we know you have to really to do this in a people-centered, figure out what are the social and economic impacts in the region, and what do you have to bring additionally to this transition endeavor. So this is one field that we are still engaged in. But I would like to share with you something that we have just presented with Jochen Flasbarth a couple of minutes ago at this COP. And this is our flagship report on green skills and jobs for the new economy. It's been financed out of the International ICI, International Climate Initiative, and GIZ. We have a couple of partners that have actually contributed to this report. What is the outcome? Actually, when we want to get, the perspective is that we can create more new jobs. So the net actually gain could be around 375 million new jobs when you go into the green economy. And especially when you look into those sectors that are specifically relevant for adaptation, agriculture, just to name one. This is again, out of the 375, these are 250 million jobs that could be created net additionally. So discounting the jobs lost due to the whole transition. We have not only concentrated on energy, but as I said, on other sectors. Of course, so there is an opportunity. The message that we want to bring across is that we have also at COPs to discuss more prominently what does it take to invest in humans, to undertake a people-centered approach in the transition. Because nowadays, only 40% of NDCs deal with employment and skills issues. This is little, and it's not a very consistent message. And only 1% of all climate finance go into human development. So the people are neglected in this whole agenda. So we hope that through the flagship report that actually we create more awareness and a roadmap to show that actually we have to invest more in people, and this has to be coincident to the climate agenda. It can't be an afterthought. Unless we continue to do so, as in the past, people are going to turn away from the transition towards net zero. They're not going to see opportunities for them in it. They're going to be frustrated. And this is not what we can afford, because we are not heading towards 1.5 degree, and the cost reaching 2.5 degrees are much, much higher than we can ever imagine. But I sincerely understand, I was at a discussion at the ILO Pavilion yesterday on just transition. I can fully understand that, of course, jobs are not just jobs. And of course, if you actually turn an industry around, an industry that has been now well organized, and they have fought for it for decades to get at this stage. And then this industry transitions out of the economy, and the type of perhaps informality that is being created in the new jobs arena is of concern. I fully agree with you. And we have also not only to look into the numbers of jobs, but our vision has to be that we create quality jobs that are fair, and invest also in some kind of organization for these workers in the new economy. But I wanted to make a plea that we have now evidence at the hand that there are big opportunities with respect for workers if we continue our path towards net zero. But it has, of course, to be people-centered. There we have to do more. It's not yet here at the
round, because that's going to be exactly the question we want to discuss in a minute. But first, I want to talk to you, Frederik, from your perspective, from Germany, from the German trade unions, and also somebody who has been participating in many COPs. From your perspective, what is going well at the moment What do you think? And where's room for, let's call it room for improvement?
At the beginning, because sometimes in the German newspapers you read that the trade unions are struggling with climate policy and transition. The German trade unions are very clear that climate protection is still an urgent case. So we are struggling with the implementation due to the crisis we are facing. We are struggling with the implementation on the company level. So this is what I want to point out, also linked to your question, that we see that we did not make great efforts on the concrete level when it comes to concrete sectors. Yeah, we are discussing about losing the steel industry in Germany due to the energy crisis, due to the shaping of this transition process. And as State Secretary Flasbarth said at the beginning, the trade unions and also the worker representatives are very clear. There's only one way for moving forward, and this is the way to climate neutrality. But in some cases, it's necessary to have a bit more flexibility to discuss how to shape this transition in a way that workplaces can be safe. I would like to underline that we might underestimate that the challenges were greater that we thought in the past, even when it came to this Russian attack on Ukraine. This energy crisis in Europe is also a crisis which we can see when it comes to climate policy, because for lots of companies it's much harder now to decarbonize. And from the perspective of the DGB, we had the clear strategy saying that decarbonization has to be a modernization on the company level. And now in lots of cases, it's a deindustrialization. So we are losing 10,000 industrial jobs each month in nowadays. And we have to turn this again. And I think this is more or less the center of the just transition, that we not only discuss about these nice words of just transition, we have to talk about the implementation, as Gabriela said, make it concrete. Talk about the needs in each country. They are different, and we have to create a policy design for each country which is reliable. Reliable for the companies, reliable for the workers, so that they are able to shape this necessity of a climate transition. And only some thoughts. What do I mean? The first thing is we need a coherent policy approach. Like State Secretary Flasbarth said at the beginning, don't discuss about the end of combustion engine. Discuss how to shape the transition of the car industry in a decent way, that we can keep the jobs, keep decent jobs, keep jobs which are under shelter of collective bargaining. Discuss how we can achieve affordable energy for the energy-intensive industries so that they are able to transform themselves into a green future. And that is why we also have to discuss about the emission trading system in a way that it helps companies and workers to get greener. And one big thing which is more or less not discussed so much because it's not that comfortable is how to finance all these transition processes. And for sure, one point is the emission trading, but we also have to discuss, and I say it in a diplomatic way, about distributional policy. And if I speak as a trade unionist, I would say, please tax even the super rich, that they pay a fair share for this transition. I think it's really urgent worldwide that we find a fair distribution between poor and rich countries, between poor and rich people, and everyone has to take its fair for the financing of this transition.
Thank you. You brought a whole new perspective of the question of financing into the debate, which I think is really, really important to really round up this first round of discussion. We have 10 minutes left, but we want to raise another concern that some of you already tackled, because what we see right now, where transformation we see it, unfortunately, elsewhere as well. So, just briefly, from each one of you, how do we deal with this? And what can we do to counter it? Who wants to start?
Well, I don't want to repeat the measures I offered before, because these measures are at the core of a policy which brings certainty to the people. It's about certainty against the uncertainty of the crises we are facing at the moment. So it's about decent jobs. It's about participation of the people in these challenging processes, and do not only talk about people, talk with them and make them able to participate and to shape these processes. This is why we promote, as trade unions in Germany, just transition, decent jobs, collective bargaining, because it gives us the chance to shape these processes on the company level. And from my point of view, this is a very decent medicine together with what I pointed out before.
Eu quero retomar essa questão da negociação coletiva.
Collective bargaining, because we believe that the process, of course you have to regulate, of course you have to inspect, the state has to inspect, the public powers, the countries, the governments, but the process of collective bargaining for us is very important, because it is at the moment of collective bargaining that people, that workers may express themselves through their union in saying exactly what they're going through in their daily lives. I think we're going to have a debate about heat stress, which is one of the most evident aspects of what we're going through today. It is fundamental that we have been seeing this, we have to have collective bargaining as a powerful space where policies on the energy, on just transition, energy transition, may be discussed. It's fundamental. Thank you. I do not want to repeat what's been said before me, but I agree totally with what's been said, because it is an issue of receiving people and people feeling welcome when the government decides on public policies. We're not deciding not for them, but with them. Otherwise, this discussion about climate and environment, it becomes something that's alien to the population. So what is the meaning of that? Why are you earning less? No. So all of that has to be considered. People have to feel welcome in the discussion, and they have to feel represented. And what Minister Maira just mentioned in the ILO Pavilion, the transition has to be feminist, anti-racist, it has to be inclusive to be just. You have to bring everybody to the debate. It's the only way to fight disinformation and populism, because if you alienate people, they're subject to disinformation, populism, etc. So basically, that's it.
Yeah, well, I wanted to perhaps look back a little bit. I mean, trust is essential, and when I look back, actually, this was shortly after the big financial crisis. At that time, I was living in Washington, and actually, Germany was considered a role model because they felt that we have a governance system, a social contract, collective bargaining, well established, and they said, look, you are managing the crisis without actually bigger job losses, and you somehow there is, yeah, so there's nobody on the streets. So this is amazing. I mean, you have established really a role model that should be copied in other countries. So I'm asking myself, what has happened the last 15 years since then? And certainly, I would say we have to regain trust by speaking and listening to people. But at the same time, I think we have to, I mean, this is complex, but we have to take a holistic approach to fairness and justice and equality issues. We can't shy away from the fact that also the numbers of poor people in Germany is growing. I mean, this in a rich country, we shouldn't be, I can't be proud about that. I think we have more possibilities. So if, for instance, public infrastructure is eroding, so and people feel that actually, although perhaps they may have the same income, but the basic social services are worsening, they feel that they are deprived from some kind of standard that they're actually comfortable with. So I think we have to take a broader picture. The transition towards a new economy will have difficult parts, but if people feel that we stay on track, that we have a clear vision, and they are part of it, so are not simply a receiver of decisions, but they can actually also be a co-creator of the new future, and they really have a chance because they have opportunities. I think then we can overcome this situation of people don't trust anymore in the political systems. But this also means that we have to create really a fair tax system, not shy away due to political opportunistic reasons from perhaps taxing things that are not so comfortable, invest into the industries of the future, and especially invest in people. I mean, when you look into the indicators, for instance, I'm saying Germany, in the education system, again, you see a lot of deficits, and families, they actually experience this at home. So this is something that is nearby people, and we have to pay much more attention to those investments, and not to the bigger figures, but to those investments that really make life difference and better for people. So as Jochen said, we can't resolve all of this under the Just Transition Work Program here in Berlin, but I hope, quite frankly, that we could get a little bit concreter, for instance, in terms of data, monitoring, measurement on investment in people. So if we would insert this and then come back at the next COP and figure out what has happened in climate finance, is there more attention paid to? I think at least we are moving into the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. I think my job is done. You said it all, but Frederik, as the co-host of this panel from the DGB, do you have closing remarks for us before we all spread out again into the field here?
Yeah, well, I can make it short. I think what we've learned on that great panel is that the topic of just transition is as hot as here in the Pavilion. So it's really important that it's discussed on the table, and I think it's really important that the Brazilian presidency put this topic as a very important topic on the agenda of COP30. And from the trade union perspective, it is very important that this BLM action mechanism helps us to implement concrete just transition measures. This is what it's about. And I think it is so important in times where multilateralism is under pressure that this COP30 will show that it's really valuable to have a multilateral approach for tackling these global challenges we are facing in this world of uncertainty. So good luck to all those who are negotiating, and you can be sure that there's pressure from the trade union movement that we achieve a decent mechanism that makes just transition really concrete. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Global Multidão, realizing just transitions. Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP30 in Billing.